Hey, welcome to the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast with me, Rob Kosberg. Every week, I interview thought leaders and experts who have used a book to grow their income and their impact. So tune in weekly for these interviews so you can learn how to use your own best-selling book and go from hunting for clients and opportunities to instead being the hunted. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Publish Promote podcast. It's Rob Kosberg again with you. I have a guest I've already been having a good time with that you are going to love, and that perhaps is going to be discussing one of the most important topics of your life. And depending on where you are in your marriage, if you're married, maybe the most important topic in your life. New York Times bestselling author Laura Doyle was the perfect wife until she actually got married. I love this little story, so I'm going to tell it. When she told her husband how to be tidier, more romantic, and more ambitious, he avoided her. I can't imagine. So she dragged him to marriage counseling and nearly divorced him. In desperation, she asked happily married women for their secrets, and that's when she got her miracle. The man who had wooed her had returned. Laura's books had been translated into 19 languages, 30 different countries, and accidentally started a worldwide movement. Laura's mission is to end world divorce. I love that. She's the founder of the International Relationship Coach Training School, Laura Doyle Connect, the star of Empowered Wives on Amazon Prime. Very, very cool. The creator of the Ridiculously Happy Wife program, which I've been married 32 years, and that is what I want, a ridiculously happy wife. You are the host of the Empowered Wife podcast. Of course, one of your New York Times bestselling books is The Empowered Wife as well. And you've appeared on the Today Show, Good Morning America, The View, and now, finally, the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast.
Finally.
Laura, so great to have you. Thank you for being on the podcast today. Really excited to talk to you.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
What an important topic. I mean, I like to be conversational, but, you know, I shared with you just a few moments ago. I mean, I watched my dad go through 4 marriages and 4 divorces, though the first one, which was a product of my mom and dad, I was only 6 months old. So I didn't exactly watch that, at least the way I did the others. And was personally pretty terrified of the idea of being married. And now I've been married 32 years. I love my wife. We have a great relationship, but sadly, that is not the case in most situations. You know, tell me, how long have you been doing this? Tell me about the number of people that you've helped. Like, give me the vision of what you've done and where this thing is going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely started out really just trying to save my own marriage. That was the big goal. And when I got these suggestions from these other women, you know, I had really been right on the brink of divorce, right? I remember I was sitting on the counselor's gray couch when I thought, this is hopeless. Wow. He's never going to change. And I have got to get divorced or I'm going to spend the rest of my life in a loveless marriage.
Wow.
So I really was right there. And then, so I met, you know, I talked to these other women. I thought they were going to say things like, oh, you have to marry the right person, you know, but they didn't say that. So good thing. Right. So, but they did give me these ideas that were pretty counter to what I'd seen growing up. And I'm like you, I'm the product of parents who divorced. So I had a failed recipe that I was following and I was going to get the same results that my parents got. So I started doing some of the crazy things they suggested, these happily married women. And I remember it was not very long after I started doing them that I walked through the door and my husband's face lit up. Like he was happy to see me again.
Wow.
I thought, okay, something's right here. Something's working. And so I really got a glimpse like, oh, okay, now I've got the right information. I know what to do to have a good marriage. So I got very hopeful. And then I thought, okay, and we're not going to have those big fights anymore, those cold wars where there's no talking for days. And then we were in the car not long after that, and we had one of those big blow-ups again. And I just thought, you know,
I had it figured out.
I had it all figured out. And what I realized was I knew what to do, but I couldn't really get myself to keep doing it. And it wasn't, the new stuff was hard. It was new. It was just new. And so I had this idea, like if I get some of my friends and they have to do it too, we're all doing it together, that would give me some structure and some accountability so that I could keep up my new habits. And so there were 5 of us and we just meet in my living room And then they would report these miracles too. One woman was like, oh, my husband won the sales contest at work and he took me on the most romantic getaway of our lives. And she'd been also unhappy in her marriage. And another one said, this isn't going to sound big, but we've been arguing for months about, I want him to paint the family room. Well, he got up and just painted the family room. He did with a smile. And she's like, that's a miracle. So we were really seeing like this works. And so one of those women said, can you write down what we're doing for my cousin in Florida? She can't come to California for these little meetings. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And that became my first book. I went to my husband, who was quite pleased with what I was doing also. And I said, I think there might be maybe 2,000 women who would be interested to get this information in their hands. And he said, okay, well, you write it up and we'll publish it. We published it together, self-published. And then I called the LA Times and I just said, I'm doing something. I think you might be interested in it and you should come over. And unknowingly, I had named this book. I was in my own little world thinking this is exactly what we're doing. But I had named it in a way that was quite controversial and upsetting to many people because I called it The Surrendered Wife.
Ooh.
I know, right? So I see you. Yeah.
In California?
I'm in the future now too. Yeah. Right. It's so funny now. I'll talk to younger wives and they're like, it just seemed very old fashioned. I'm like, oh, it did to me too. Believe me, but, and that was, 20 years ago, but a surrendered wife just knows she can't control her husband, right? She can't, it's not going to help if she tells him how to drive or what to wear, or what to eat for lunch. So she doesn't try. She instead focuses on her own happiness. And that in turn, it really improves the intimacy because what does he want more than anything? Yeah. For her to be happy, just like you were saying earlier.
Right.
So that was the start of it. And then the LA Times did a story. And back then we had The Wire. Things were picked up on The Wire and it ran nationally, internationally. Wow. So it's kind of a crazy thing. And then Simon & Schuster republished it and I had to rewrite the whole thing really. And it was much better after that. And then, 19 languages in 30 countries. So I didn't set out to do any of that. I just wanted to fix my own marriage.
Wow.
But ended up being like this calling because I just remember Dateline did an investigative piece on, I had a workshop at the time and they followed one of the workshop members. And it aired one night, on a Wednesday. And when I woke up the next morning, my book was #1 on Amazon of all books. Wow. And then we hit the New York Times list. And so women just kept reaching out to me like, okay, I got the book. And like me, they knew what to do. And they couldn't do it. And they were asking for help. And I'd put my email and my phone number in that book, here's what you do. And I was trying to help everybody one by one. And
wow.
Yeah, it was great. And so then I just got overwhelmed. I didn't have any systems or structure to do that. So I just remember at one point, everything's in the book, just read my book. Yeah. And then finally I realized okay, I can train other women to be coaches. We're coaches now. So now I have a team of about 40 coaches that, support all the women that come through our organization. Yeah. And then there's lots of, so that's, I forget what you asked.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I don't know either. Oh, I love it. I have so many questions from that. And this may be an unfair question, but I want to ask. Everybody has their magic, their process, their 6 steps, whatever it is. Is there a way that you can, give us a taste of what that looks like? I'd love to.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. So, Rob, I'm on a mission to end world divorce. I am holding nothing back. Good. And definitely go get the book, but get my free roadmap. Join my free Adored Wife Facebook group. I have so much free stuff that I'm happy to just give everything away as much as I can because it's a big mission. We're making a dent. I feel tens of thousands of women now have been able to fix their marriage using these. So the 6 intimacy skills are the secrets that I learned from these women, the really surprising things that they said to me that didn't make any sense at the time. And I'll give you an example. I remember one woman she said, I try never to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it. And I remember thinking, I think I even said, hey, have you got anything else? Because how is that going to work? Right. So, and I didn't know I didn't even think that was possible. Like, how do you, I mean, I'm supposed to, be honest, right? I'm supposed to be authentic with my husband and let him know when he, is messing up. But honestly, it turns out, that's not what we did when we were falling in love. I didn't tell him how he was messing up. I thought he was like the smartest, most handsome, talented, funniest guy, right? That's why I married him. Yeah. So I had to come up with like some structure, some cheat phrases. And the one that I came up with for that, because I was I was so controlling, unfortunately. And I found out that control is about fear and I was really choosing my fear over my faith and my husband's competency. So one of the little cheat phrases I came up with to not criticize or control my husband, which are disrespectful, of course, was to just say whatever you think. So he'd say like, I know I got to take the car in to get those brakes looked at, but I'm feeling like, I think I'm going to do it next week instead of this week or whatever. And I'd be like freaking out, like, that's the brakes on the car. Like, you can't do that. But instead I would just say, whatever you think. I trust you. And so I was really just like trying to convey like, I think you're smart. I think I want you to make those decisions yourself. I don't want to be telling you how you should do those things because I don't want to feel like your smother mother, who's, by the way, not very sexually attractive to her husband. So I started doing that. And then I was able to, teach other women to use this phrase at times too. And one of my students had just a great story of she had just read the book and it was a real eye opener for her because she thought all the problems in her second marriage were because of him, as many of us have thought. And so she decided she was going to experiment with using this phrase as soon as she finished reading the book, right? So he came up to her and he said, listen, you got to tell me what I should do with the cell phone plan. We need a new cell phone plan. And she was afraid he was going to mess up, but she said, yeah, Doug, whatever you think. And he goes, no, come on. Like, I don't want to get in trouble later. Right. So you better tell me what you want me to do. And she just repeated it. She said, whatever you think, I trust you. Wow. So he went away and made his decision about the cell phone plan and he did fine. Right. It was fine. Yeah. And, they'd been sleeping in separate beds for like 6 months. And that night he came up to her and he just said, you were so nice today. And there was a thaw. And she said she got tears in her eyes and she climbed into their same bed for the first time in 6 months that night. And it was like the beginning of a reconciliation. And that was 20 years ago. And she still gets tears in her eyes when she talks about how tragic it would have been to lose this guy who's the love of her life, just because she didn't have the right training and the right skills. So anyway, so that's a little glimpse. There's 6 skills and there's over 20 cheat phrase. I call them cheat phrases. They're meant to like put your heart right? Like the way we teach children to say please and thank you, right? Because we want to cultivate gratitude. So I'd be happy to go through all 6 if that's how you want to use the time.
I love that. I mean, I'm happy to do whatever you want to do. I want people to get the book because I think the things you're sharing are so powerful. Maybe go in a different direction. Let me ask you this. From the previous title, the first title, The Surrendered Wife, and just listening to you and connecting with you, is there a spiritual component to all of this? And if so, how did that come about? And maybe, share some of that. I'd like to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a spiritual component in terms of paying a lot more attention to your spirit. I remember at the end of the Oprah show, she used to say, remember your spirit, right? And this, for me, this book really was the answer to that because it's so much about, we talk about staying on your paper. It's sort of like when you're a kid at school, they say, keep your eyes on your paper, not your neighbor's paper, right? But it's like, what's your husband doing? Well, that's not, we don't have any power there. That's where you get exhausted and overwhelmed. But what's happening on your paper? How do you feel? What do you want? So we're paying a lot of attention to our spirits, and certainly like making ourselves ridiculously happy is one aspect of it. And what we have found is that women from a wide variety of faiths, like many Orthodox Jewish coaches, I have Muslim coaches and I have Christian coaches as well. They're all very attracted to this work. Yeah. And they they all say something similar, which is, I knew from my faith that this is what I am supposed to be doing. This really matches my faith.
Right.
But I didn't have the specific instructions, the specific training that I needed to really be successful. And now I do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've listened carefully to what you've said. You've used words like heart. You've talked about humility, obviously focusing on yourself. And many of these are very basic kind of spiritual principles. And maybe basic isn't the right word. They're fundamental spiritual principles that often get lost, right? Because oftentimes people that maybe don't have a religious upbringing or even a spiritual kind of upbringing or sense, they look at religious people as the opposite, right? They're arrogant. They want to impose their opinion on other people, and there certainly is that element. But this is the opposite, which really is kind of a fundamental belief. I wonder if you can speak to that at all. I mean, that must be interesting. That you must have both. You must have people that are still opposed in one sense to some of the things you're teaching because it doesn't feel very 2021-ish, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Even though, and on the other hand, there must be this real embracing of it by certain people that either have experienced it in their faith or just knew they should have experienced in their faith. I wonder if you can speak to that at all.
Yeah, I have a theory that and we'll never know, but if somebody had given me my books prior to me writing them, I would have been like, no, thank you. I am a feminist and I'm well educated and, my opinion counts and I know that and, whatever. Right. So I do think it is a spiritual journey in every sense of the word to gain that humility and that to choose your faith, right, over your fear. And it's true what you said. Like I certainly have students who are quite enthusiastic, but they're like, but not this part, and I get that. Like, I don't want to do that part either sometimes. Right. So, and I feel like that's okay. That's good. You can experiment with these skills, right? It's maybe just you're doing something different than you've ever done before to get the kind of relationship you've never had before. Yeah. But if that's motivating, right? If you think having a strong marriage, a lasting marriage, if that's a priority to you, if that's important to you, then that's where the willingness comes from to maybe stretch and grow and do things that are pretty uncomfortable at first. Some of the phrases, really felt like sawdust in my mouth. Then they became honey in my mouth after I saw the results and felt the restored dignity, myself and confidence that I got from them.
Yeah, I love that. I wonder, Laura, the obvious theme is helping people in their marriages, which probably means that a lot of people are coming in desperate circumstances.
Yes.
Is there any kind of movement to getting this to people, like in marriage counseling or, a little like Dave Ramsey, teaches within churches this financial, peace and independence and that kind of thing, trying to help people at whatever stage they're in, and hopefully before they make a mess of things.
Sure.
Is there anything like that happening?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So that is a big part of my podcast, the Empowered Wife podcast. I go through everything in the 6 skills and hold nothing back and give all my best stuff. And I hold a challenge where I invite women to come onto Facebook. That's coming in August, actually. And we just go through the whole thing as a community. We just all, today we're all going to try this cheat phrase, or, you're going to experiment with, taking this action or whatever. And then my coaches, I have coaches all over the world. And we are trying to serve women wherever you find them, right? Which is certainly at churches and moms groups and just wherever we can get to them. I mean, I will say that it is true that most of my students show up feeling pretty hopeless. Like, I know it's worked for other people, Laura, but I just can't see how it's going to, the problem is his drinking. The problem is his other woman. The problem is that, he's verbally abusive or emotionally abusive or physically abusive. How in the world is this ever going to fix anything. I don't see it. And yet if they come, I just admire, I feel like my students are my heroes too, because I feel like I should, have awards or something, give out, because they'll come with like a triple threat. I just interviewed a woman on the podcast. He said, we're getting divorced. He had another woman. He'd moved out, so separated. That, it's the trifecta. And here she was coming on my podcast to talk about the miracle in her marriage, where, a year ago, that was their situation. And now here we are a year hence from her getting the community and the skills and the support, the coaching that she needed. And they're back together. She says her marriage is better than ever. She's pregnant, expecting their next child.
Wow.
And so this is the kind of, they inspire me. That's what I get to witness every day. So when your hope is low, that's where I want you to come closer to this community, because that's part of what we're here. You had a little shred of hope, you misplaced it somewhere. That's okay. Come on over. We'll remind you of what's possible.
You know what's interesting? I'm just going to be blunt and honest. Maybe not blunt, but honest. But it's funny, even like hearing some of the things that you're sharing, I have this uneasiness, like even in myself, like that guy doesn't deserve her. I mean, right? I mean, like you said, they're verbally abusive, physically abusive. I'm like, oh, should that be fixed? Like, I don't know. There's like a part of me that just, so I can imagine how it must create so much turmoil in these wives.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not a wife and I'm not them, and I feel a reaction within me over
Absolutely.
that. Is that weird?
No, it's totally appropriate. Of course. And you want to, and especially with somebody you love, you just want to protect them, right? So if you hear he's abusive, he's cheating, he's drinking excessively, or you just think, oh my God, get out, right? That's right. So it's kind of an embarrassing story. So in that first book, The Surrendered Wife, that's pretty much what I wrote. Like, if he's one of these three things that we're talking about right now, then I say you should leave. This isn't, don't stay. It's not safe. And I ended up having to do the worst, eat humble pie big, because what I discovered was that women would say, you know what, he's these things, and I have 5 kids, and I'm not going to break up my family, or I would have to go get a job, or whatever, right? Or I don't want to lose status in my church, or whatever it is, like for whatever, or I made a covenant to God, and I'm not going to break it, right? I have a lot of women say that. So they needed something, and they were willing to do some work on their side, just to see, what if I just clean up my side of the street? Let's just see what happens. And that's where I feel like I really do need awards for these wives, right? It just blows my mind. I have a coach who had a restraining order against her husband. And now she's just this powerful coach. She has fixed so many marriages, right? I have another one who went to the hospital for physical abuse, right? But they saw another possibility. So, I mean, I always think safety comes first. Of course, if you're not safe, and you're the expert on your own life, and you have to do what fits for you. And if you decide like, hey, I really have to get out, this is really an unsafe situation, then I completely support that. And I'm not the expert on your marriage. And I would never. So today we're a stand for every marriage, marriage. If you want to fix it, come on over. We got you.
Wow. That's beautiful. I mean, that's inspiring, challenging.
Challenging.
Right?
It is.
It's challenging. I mean, it challenges like conventional thought. A lot of these things do. But, I haven't been married for 32 years because I've done it the way everyone else has done it. That's
exactly
true,
right.
Right?
That's exactly right.
You got to throw out conventional thought if you want an unconventional marriage. And so many marriages end in divorce, and even the ones that don't aren't particularly happy in many cases. And so I love what you're doing. I congratulate you. I couldn't be, happier for you. I feel like I've known you forever.
I know.
Just talking to you. It's very, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe we can shift gears a little. And I want to give, by the way, I don't know what links you're going to give towards the end, but I don't want to forget this. You have a challenge coming up. I love challenges. We do an online book challenge and that kind of thing. It helps so many people. So I want to make sure if we can give the link to the challenge, if you're okay with that.
Yes.
Good,
yes.
good. I want to at least mention that. We'll give them a bunch of different links and we'll put them in the show notes. But so part of the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast is your magic, and your magic is incredible. And I congratulate you and wish you much, much more success. The other part of it is telling us about, and you shared a little bit, how your books in particular and your content has really helped you to become an authority in your space, get your message out to the world, specific examples of that, because so many people have, a great story in them and great content and great knowledge, and yet are oftentimes afraid maybe of writing their book or taking those steps. And so we want to try to inspire them to, do what they need to do in that case. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about that. What, are you continuing to write? Are you continuing to create content? Give me the vibe on that.
I create content almost every day still to this day, but I have 5 books and I'm feeling pretty complete with that, I have to say.
Good.
My latest book, The Empowered Wife, I'm super proud and happy with how it really lays out everything for women to really get started. And I guess I just want to speak to how scary everything is at every stage. I mean, I was super passionate to write my first book, all my books. But oh my gosh, when it came to going on the Today Show and Good Morning America and Dateline, like, oh my goodness, like, can I just go back to bed because I don't think I'm ready for this, And and I feel like every stage is that way. Like when I started my coaching organization, when I did the Empowered Wives on Amazon, like I just get terrified all the time. And so I guess for me, a couple of things. I mean, one is like, I try not to let that stop me. I mean, I'm sure it does sometimes. It probably does. There's probably things I would have done if I wasn't so scared all the time. But also that there's just nothing quite like having a team of cheerleaders, people that are standing for your greatness and cheering you on. And it's almost like saying, who wants to do this with me? And then, people raise their hand. They do. They want to do it with you. Like I think about my coach, Kathy Murray, who's been with me since the beginning for 20 years now. And that has just given me so much inner strength. And I've gone so much further by just, having a team, being surrounded by people who share the same passion and mission and really want me to be successful. And they want themselves to be successful too, right? That it's almost like, hey, let's go this way. And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Yeah. I love that. So having the right team around you, super important. Obviously having people that share the dream with you and what your goals and desires. In some ways it might be hard for people to relate to you because Today's Show, Good Morning America, The View, Dateline, New York Times bestselling author. I don't know all the dates of that, but I think that some of those things took place a while ago, or
they did.
Maybe from your first and second book. And so your more recent books, perhaps, you've gotten media and certainly you've gotten attention, but I think it's probably been a little bit different than the attention that you've gotten in the past. Talk to me a little bit about how your more recent books have helped you to, like The Empowered Wife, how has it helped you to further your message, build your coaching program, that kind of thing, without the Today Show or Good Morning America, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, Rob, you're so smart to make that distinction. That is a really important one. And I remember really feeling discouraged that I couldn't make it rain again the way it all happened. That with that first book, I was like, that was amazing. Let's just do that again. And it didn't happen that way at all. And the most recent book was really born out of needing to update my messaging. Like, this is what I've learned over the past, because it came 15 years after that first book.
Yeah.
And I'd been married 15 years longer. And I had all these tens of thousands of students that I'd learned so much from. And, it was that mea culpa that I mentioned earlier. So that book, the purpose was very much like, I really wanted to just lay out these 6 intimacy skills so clearly, so black and white for everyone to just pick up. And I had already started my coaching organization at that point. So it felt like a tool, like something I was going to be able to that like everybody can have this, and then they're indoctrinated. They come and they know why they're coming to me, right? I'm not just some relationship expert, marriage expert. They are attracted to this message that lasting marriage is important, and they have power to do that. So I think I definitely did a lot of the traditional things that you would think. Like, I think I sadly fell into some telesummits, which I don't recommend necessarily. I've done many podcasts. I've been a guest on many podcasts, of course. I did do some TV. I think I did like, I don't know, Good Morning Portland. And, I did just a little bit of that kind of thing. Yeah. And you're right. I just didn't get the same kind of, whoa, explosive growth. But what I found was my blogging. Fundamentally, I'm a writer, right? In fact, I do these speaking things and other things, but that's not really my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is I'm a writer. And so through the blogs, one thing that happened, I was just so fortunate, was I would write a blog on like how to get him back. And it would start to rank highly on Google because I was really speaking to my niche audience, right? That's exactly what they were looking for. And so today, I'm proud to say, most of the women that find me organically, or we also have fantastic word of mouth. Yeah. Fortunately, women read the book and they get super excited and they make all their friends read the book too. So I've done a lot less traditional media than I did with the first one. And yet we're really happy with where we are and who the book reaches.
I love it. In some ways you caught lightning in the bottle in the beginning.
I did.
And yet that doesn't necessarily create longevity in and of itself, right? And so, most of the people that are listening will not do that, right? They're not going to hit the New York Times necessarily and maybe, be on all of these amazing shows. However, and I haven't. Having a great book, Publish, Promote, Profit is a Wall Street Journal bestseller, but it hasn't sold millions of copies, of course. But that book has led to about $3 million in revenue to my business in just the last 18 months because we're using it in conjunction with paid advertising, book funnels, online challenges, those kinds of things. And so, that is lasting because, if you have a message and you can continue to put your message at a profit, because it's a business venture, right? I mean, if you're going to keep doing what you're doing, you need to survive, you need to make money. And
you have to be sustainable.
Right, of course. And the more people you want to get your message in front of, the more money it's going to cost you to do that.
Yes.
In an advertising sense, et cetera. And so thanks for answering that. I mean, I love what you're doing, the blogging, all your writing. And if you haven't done book funnels, it may be hard if your books are traditionally published, but because it's a little bit more expensive that way. But book funnels are a fantastic way. And I'm telling you, I know of a couple of people that run book funnels in the marriage advice relationship space and get their message out in a big, powerful way. It's a very profitable place to, on Facebook, Instagram, even YouTube, advertising in a free plus shipping type book funnel. Anyway, we can talk more about that, and I can send you some links if you're interested in that kind of thing. But
absolutely.
But thanks for sharing that, because that, it's important for people to hear that kind of thing, because so many of my clients come to me and they're like, you know what, we want to hit New York Times and we want to be on these shows. And I'm like, well, what then? Okay, let's say that were to happen. It's not going to, but let's say it. What then? You need a sustainable way to get your message out. And your book is, everybody's book is, but there has to be a process that is, we like to call it proactive as opposed to reactive. Reactive is things are happening and the book is selling and it's just amazing and you don't even know where it's coming from. Proactive is, I know where it's coming from. I do this and I get this back, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, good. You're absolutely right. The first one was just reactive. It just was falling over backwards and being very fortunate. Yeah. So you make a really good point. That's exciting. I mean, Rob, I'm super impressed that that kind of revenue from book sales.
Oh, it's not from book sales. It's from our program sales. So the book, like you, the book is leading to our done for you services. So
that's right.
Yeah. So, we've done, I don't know. The probably on Facebook alone, maybe we've sold 20 or 25,000 copies in the last 18 months, but that's generally not at a profit. That's at a loss or break even, best case scenario. But what that does is that, that leads people to me through our email autoresponder and through our other process of people that say, well, I want to do everything that you teach in Publish, Promote, Profit, but I don't have time. I'm a business owner. Can I just write you a check? And of course, we're willing to take a check, and it's what we do, and we'll help them with that. But that's the point. That's the point of our business, is helping the right people to get their message out and then kind of duplicate that in whatever their space is. So our book is, my book is the way to, get people to raise their hands in a profitable or a break-even way on the front end for us.
Yeah. Fantastic, Robert. I'm so happy that you are sharing what you do with other authors, because it is, what a mystery, right?
It is a mystery.
Have a book and then go, what do I do? And I didn't experience it on the first book, but I have certainly experienced that challenge on subsequent books. So you really need a guide. Everyone does. I still need a guide. And I use the best and brightest people that I can find to help me get my message out far and wide.
Yeah. Well, you need to,
because how you end world divorce. Yeah.
Your message matters. It matters. And it's already helped tens of thousands, but there's certainly tens of thousands more that you need to help. So, Laura, thank you. Yeah. Where can people, let's send them some, let's give them the link to the challenge. That's right. Let's tell them where they can best find you to get your stuff.
So I have two really great things going on. One is that challenge. The timing is fantastic. So if you go to Facebook and join my free Adored Wife Facebook group, that's where we're going to hold the challenge.
Love it.
But you can also be notified by email. And one great way to join my email list is to go and download the free Adored Wife roadmap. So it's a PDF. So if you just go and download that, and you can check the box that says, you want to hear about other stuff that we're doing, then I'll keep you up to date. And plus, that Adored Wife roadmap is fantastic. It has the 6 things laid out on there. And it also has 3 most common mistakes that women make when they're trying to get their husband's time, attention, and affection, and I made all those mistakes too, sadly, and then what to do instead. So that's how you can do it.
What's the link to get that download?
Oh, good question. Thank you. Appreciate that, Rob. It's lauradoyle.org.
Perfect.
lauradoyle.org.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll send them there. And of course, they can look up The Adored Wife on Facebook, and yours is the group, and they can join that group for the challenge. And I assume you do multiple challenges at different times. Is that if someone is hearing this later or something?
Yeah, I've done a few. I'm just getting started with them. I think for sure we do at least 1 a year, maybe 2 a year.
Yeah.
We'll see how that pans out in the future. It's a lot for my team.
It's a lot of work.
to put up a challenge. I think people don't realize, oh my gosh. But I do love them. They're so inspiring and exciting.
Yeah.
So definitely don't miss the challenge. And you can come and check, and we'll let you know when they're coming up.
Yeah, and certainly they can be in the Facebook group, and I imagine there's a lot of engagement and whatnot in the Facebook group, and they can get a lot of help in there no matter when. Awesome.
That's right. We're always always providing lots of resources in there.
Good. Laura, thank you. I know we went a little long, but this was really, really good stuff for people. And thank you for being here today. Loved having you on the podcast, and we'll get this out to people right away. And this is a great message people need to hear.
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. It's really been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.